Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm super excited. Today joining us is Mike Michalowicz. He's my favorite business author. And it was interesting this morning. I was telling my wife, I said, Mike Michalowicz is going to be on our podcast. And she said, ooh, business royalty. And I didn't even have to explain who he was. She knew, and she's not involved in my business really at all. So he is business royalty. So Mike Michalowicz, many of you know him. He is a serial entrepreneur and author of many books that have helped thousands upon thousands of businesses. His purpose and mission is to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. Welcome to today's show, Mike.
Steven, thanks for having me. Christeen, it's awesome to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making the time for us and our listeners, because I know they're very excited and they are huge fans.
Oh, I love hearing that. Well, I'm huge fans of theirs. So there we go.
So we want to start off today about talking about you, Mike. So we want to talk about, who is Mike Michalowicz and what got you started down this path of being an entrepreneur and helping so many other entrepreneurs?
So, listen, I'm just a dude who started a business, not that I wanted to. When I graduated college, I don't know, Christeen, if it's the same for you, Steven. My parents were like, you got to get one job for the rest of your life. My parents were the greatest generation, perhaps yours were too, World War II generation. And so I went to an engineering school to placate my father, who was an engineer. I did not have the propensity. I was not good at that. But I couldn't get a real job, a career job after school. I worked at a little computer store. And my experience there inspired me because I had a misperception, but I saw the owner sitting in the back, smoking cigars and counting money. I'm like, oh, you get rich owning a business, sitting in the back. So I started my own business, and I discovered, he wasn't smoking cigars, counting money. He was panicking, counting bills he had to pay, and the stress he was under caused him to smoke. And I was like, oh, wow. Entrepreneurship was a terrifying journey for me, but something I committed to very early. I was 23 when I started my first business, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since. That fear became confidence over time. Not that I was making tons of money or anything, but at least I kind of got a sense for I know what I'm doing now. I then subsequently sold some businesses. I got a massive ego over that. I was like, oh my God, now I really know what to do. Build it, pump it, and dump it, as they say. My ego exploded. And that's when I think I got the most important lesson around business is I lost everything. I started another company that was just, I was a disaster. I was throwing money everywhere and like, let's just grow. And got an investor even. I'm like, let's just spend this money on a nicer office suite. And was facing bankruptcy. I decided not to declare it, but was facing bankruptcy. I had to liquidate my earning assets, stop and restart. And that became the wake-up call for me. I thought that just by being an entrepreneur, I would learn everything about entrepreneurship, that just going through the practice, if I just followed the rules of everyone else, I'd be doing so well. And I started to investigate what are the rules I was following. And I started documenting them, and I still do. How do you handle customer service? How do you do sales, make a profit, and so forth? And every formula or belief I had, I said, is this really true, or do I just believe it because others said it's true? And I started investigating it, and that's how profit first came about. I don't believe the formula we've been told that profit comes last is right. I think it's horrible. It's not the bottom line or year end. I've studied sales, customer service. I think there's so many mistakes made. They're so easily correctable if we follow new rules. So I believe this to be true, but then I test out my own businesses that I own today to see if they work. If they work, then I introduce it to friends like you, Christeen, Steven. We were just getting together just a few weeks ago in Texas, and I was sharing some stuff. My friends take it on, and if it works, once there's enough momentum, I put it into a system, I document it in a book, and I publish a book. So long story to say, today I'm now an author. I've published 10 books. I have 11th coming out. And my goal is to simply codify, to document a process that works for me and my friends, and hopefully for every entrepreneur that reads it. And in most cases, challenges the established norm, because I don't think the established process in many cases is the right process.
So, Mike, one of my favorite stories is at the table when your daughter comes down to the dinner table with the piggy bank. And Christeen's, one of her favorite sayings is the pig, or what is the
pumpkin or the pig? Which
the
one?
Pumpkin or the pig?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two defining moments. So I wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. I had a business coach come to me, and he went through all my books and numbers and stuff. And after his exhaustive analysis, he looked up at me. It must have been hours. Maybe it wasn't, but felt that way. And he goes, "You don't want to be that guy." And I'm like, "What?" And he started to outline my retirement days. And he's like, "You're going to regret life. You're going to be bitching and moaning because you didn't do the right things now. We got to fix this." And what he drove home was where we sit today, yourself, myself, where we sit today in our business and our lives is a direct result of our actions and decisions over the last 5 years. There's no question there's outside influencers. We can't stop hurricanes and tornadoes, Mother Nature. We can't stop or change our competitors, but we can always manage our response to a situation. And he goes, "You're so fixed in your pattern, where you are now is going to repeat over and over again. I'm looking for how devoted you are to your own failure, effectively, or your own struggle, is probably the better choice of words." That was that story. You don't want to be that guy who regrets life. The piggy bank story came years later. So Frank was my original business coach who taught me what I wrote in The Pumpkin Plan. I subsequently started growing businesses. But I didn't have a profit system. So they weren't even really profitable businesses. It was just, it was a cash flow game. Can I make more money, more sales today than I'm spending? And then I'm in the cash positive, which is true until the sales dip or slow down. Then all those expenses come crashing forward and you collapse. Well, my third business, I didn't understand this. I was blowing money left and right, and the profit the revenue never increased fast enough, and it came crashing down. I lost my house, my cars, my possessions. I came home to my family, and I'm like ashamed about this. I am ashamed about this, that I had been lying to my wife and my children by omission. When my wife asked, "How's business going?" I'm like, "It's great." When the kids are like, "Hey, Daddy, welcome home," I'm like, "Yeah, let's play. Life is great." But back at the office, it was a total struggle. Well, we lost our house 30 days after I got this notice from my accountant. He's like, "You got to liquidate to pay your taxes now or declare bankruptcy." So lost the house, lost everything. My daughter, when I was telling my wife and children this story, I was sobbing at the time. And to give note or context to this, you and I, we're providers. And our job, as we define it for ourselves, is to provide for ourselves, our family, our community. It's the one thing I committed to that I wasn't doing. And my daughter, she was 9 years old. She ran up to her bedroom, grabbed her piggy bank, and she ran back to me. I'll never forget this, big blue eyes. And she's like, "Daddy, since you can't provide for the family, I'll be our provider." And it was, I still get emotional over it. It was so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed. I was so proud of her. I think it was the ultimate wake-up call. Last little bow tie on this, it wasn't that moment that was the wake-up call. I didn't wake up and say, "Okay." It's only in reflection that my darkest moments, I suspect for many of us, what we think is our darkest moments sometimes is a gift wrapped in super ugly wrapping paper. And that's what that was.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can, relate with that, Mike, of working with so many entrepreneurs for so many years. That was, they went through the trenches but they didn't know how to get out. Yeah. And one of the conversations, we did have a couple of weeks ago was some entrepreneurs can see the forest between the trees and other entrepreneurs can see the trees through the forest, and that's kind of the challenge of your journey to where you said, I understood the pumpkin plan concept and how to grow a colossal business and what that looked like, but the profit system was missing. And we've seen so many times where entrepreneurs have pumpkin planned themselves into needing profit first.
I know.
And it's a sad journey to see, and they're like, but I'm following this process. And it's a yes, you are, but. And then there's the profit first, where profit first will get you into pumpkin planning your business. So it's always that, what comes first, the pumpkin or the pig? And depending, I think, on our mindset as entrepreneurs and what our strengths are and what they aren't, is what's going to work for us best.
Totally. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for our survivability, specified a sequence of things. Like, we need to breathe oxygen first and foremost. And if you're hungry, you got to eat. But if you're hungry and not breathing oxygen, food can wait. Yeah. We can go a certain period of time without food. We can only go for a short period, maybe 2 minutes without oxygen. Well, in our business, I equate the revenue somewhat like oxygen. We need the oxygen to create cash. But to build muscle sustainability, you need to eat. So what most businesses do is they say, let's simply sell our way out of this. What you're saying is, let's breathe deeper to satisfy our starving stomach. It'll never work. But in the moment, it's like, that's what we need to do. We're not breathing enough. So to your point, it's a balance. One necessitates the other. And often it's like a ping pong effect, I find, is that a business that grows sustainably will focus on its sales efforts, introduce a profit system, ensure it's profitable, maximize the profit around whatever they're selling, and then say, hey, to expand further, is there a new service or product we can introduce? Which then brings about more sales opportunity, but we need to make sure that's profitable. So we start focusing on profitable. We start this kind of flip-flopping process. You could theoretically just say, all I care about is profit and not sell anything. And sure enough, you'll be profitable because maybe your mom gave you $1 and you kept it all. That's profit. It's 100%. But there's no business there. So it is this balance for sure.
I remember the first time.
With mom, by the way, that was not a mom's fault. Steven got offended. He's like, my mom gave me that lunch money.
Like $2. It was $2. When we were at a retreat and you were talking about fix this next in the hierarchy of business needs. Yeah. And I was sitting there and I was just listening. I was like, and when you finished, I was like, my mind, I was holy crap. We're spending all this time focusing on everything. And I was like, guilty of it too. And then this tool and this Fix This Next assessment came out. You developed it. Yeah. Like, this is what we need to focus on. And, using those tools has helped me and my team so much.
Oh, I love it.
To really not only focus, but put all our energy and all our resources in the right, at the right time with the right people. And, it's fluid. It goes up and down. Sometimes we need sales and sometimes we need structure and order and legacy. It's not like we just climb every step and stay there. It goes up and down throughout the year. But, it created a lever that we can have a discussion with to focus my team. So that's such a great, impactful system.
There's at the beach we go to every summer in New Jersey. And yes, New Jersey has beaches, believe it or not. And there's a whack-a-mole game. And I enjoy playing it. I love watching people play because we come down with such vicious hits. So you can't wait to hit that mole, right? As it pops up. But right when you're swinging here, it goes down and you whack nothing. And the other one pops up and kind of spits in your face. And I'm like, oh, this is very typical of business. Could you imagine there was a little blinking light for each hole that the mole can come out of? And right before it comes out, it blinks a few times. We would hit so much more accurately. And in business, I think, that's such an interesting analogy that we simply start whacking away as hard as we can and think if we hit more violently, more viciously, we'll catch up. And then sometimes we get a mole and they're like, see, it works. And then we're missing again and again and again. So I created that hierarchy of business needs, which I'm calling a priority pyramid now, because some things that people get confused on when they read that book is they say, oh, it's like a ladder. I got to climb to the top. Like, no, it's what is your priority now? And we're going to bump around. The same mole is going to pop up again. It's not like there's an infinite number of moles and you only see it once. They pop around. So in our business, I'm trying to make that indicator light. And Stephen, I love how you're addressing it. It's simply a discussion point. It's not a perfect system that if you just read these questions and there's 25 questions in there, okay, I know exactly what it is. I designed this question to say this is most likely where it's going to be. And by engaging your team, I love that you're doing that. You start getting people that are close to the problem themselves, people that can see it in a much more intimate way. I remember I interviewed the landscaping crew from Ole Miss, the University of Mississippi. And when I was interviewed, and I cannot remember the guy's name at the moment, but when I interviewed him, they had a problem. And what it was they didn't have enough time to beautify the campus. They had enough time to maintain the campus, but they couldn't beautify it. So projects like installing shrubbery and flowers and so forth wasn't happening. As a result, and they had a low budget, as a result, this is 25, 30 years ago, Ole Miss had a reputation for being one of the least attractive campuses in the nation. It just was ugly. Well, the consequence was student applicants applicants that became students was lower compared to their contemporaries in the SEC conference, the other schools in the SEC. And they said, and when they interviewed students, they said, it's the reaction to our campus. Like when you walk on, chances are, anyone listening to this show, if you went to college, when you walked on the campus, you probably felt in your gut, I'm here or I'm not, like within 5 minutes. It's usually how it presents itself. A few other factors too. So Ole Miss said, we need to maintain a beautiful campus. We need to beautify this place. Well, the head of landscaping didn't say, give me more money, because that was a non-starter. He simply said, let's get the crew in here. And the crew came back with ideas of how to achieve this outcome. And they said, yes, we can beautify it. Here's the areas where most students walk. Because when I'm out there, I see where the students are going from class to class. I see the tours that are taken. We don't need the whole campus to be beautiful. We need 20% where 80% of the people go. I remember they said, if you simply allow us to cut the trees, the limbs off the trees, we can mow in half the time. And what they were saying was when you're in a mower, and Stephen, you know this, you're in the industry, and you come across a low-hanging tree limb, you can't go under it. You have to jog around it. It's a lot of maneuvering, and that's precious time. They said, let's trim the trees out 10 feet, and a riding mower can go right under it, straight line, which is actually a more beautiful cut when you do straight lines. It's way more efficient, and the trees look more attractive. They instead of using mulch, they use pine needles, which is for trees indigenous in the South. It's actually a better mulch material. Plus, it doesn't need to be changed out less often. Plus, it's readily available and cheaper in the South. So the people closest to the problem reported back how to fix the problem. They whacked that mold perfectly. The end of that story is Ole Miss is considered one of the most beautiful campuses. It's ranked this way in many magazines as one of the most beautiful campuses in the U.S., not just the SEC, but in the U.S. now.
And I love that with the fix this next process, because, Mike, you do test these out. I was, one of the pumpkin plant strategists that said, hey, use this on your clients. This is a book I'm working on. And we did. And it was a great process, to kind of unpack with our clients and the ahas that they had just in fleshing out the process and finding the simplicities in it. So any business owner could use it. It was an amazing experience. And the thing that I loved about it most is as business owners, we have blinders on.
Yeah.
We have this perspective of what is happening in the business and when. So the Fix This Next assessment, and you share this in the book, is something that not only the business owner takes, but the team members take. Because just in the story that you just shared, that perspective of our team can solve the biggest problems. And that's exactly what it sounds like happened, on the Ole Miss campus.
There's a book, exactly what happened. There's a book called Switch, written by Dan Heath and Chip Heath. And they talk about a story that happened in Vietnam. And this is a great example. I wish I had discovered the story. They talk about looking for bright spots. And what they were trying to do in this story was a research team from the U.S. went to Vietnam to help serve malnutrition in the youth of the country. This was post-Vietnam War. So these were, I guess, a form of reparations. What they did try initially was the leaders from the U.S. would come and say, here's what you need to do to fix this. And the community's like, F you, thanks for destroying our country. No way, we're listening to you. That authoritative approach, even though the solution may have been right, it wasn't received. Mm-hmm. What they did is the last attempt, instead of a leader coming and saying, this is what you do, they started interviewing Vietnam communities and saying, what's working? And they found a few bright spots. There were some communities, some parents, where the children, they were very poor families, were not malnourished, yet the vast majority, like 98%, were. And they found that these families, instead of serving rice, which is the traditional meal for children, alone, they integrated shrimp and some greens and stuff from the area around them, and it gave them the protein and vitamins necessary. Those children, even in those really difficult conditions, were nourished properly. Then they invited those moms and dads to start teaching their community. as the community started to adopt it, then it expanded into others. And I think within like 5-6 years, the table had basically flipped. It was about 80 to 90% of children were properly nourished now using their own protocol. And that's what I'm explaining here that we need to do when we have a problem in our business. It's very common for us as a leader to say, I know the fix, let's just do this, and expect everyone to follow through. But they're close to the problem. So first of all, they may feel ignored, saying, I know this problem and you're not listening to me. Secondly, they didn't create the idea. And we have great ownership over ideas that we create ourselves. I think great leaders will say, we have a problem. This is what I think it is. Do you all agree? I think there's some solutions out there, but I want to understand from you what you believe the solution is, and then we'll enact upon that. Find those bright spots, have the team bring the solutions to the table, and now they're engaged in it. And you're much more likely to find those low-hanging limbs, so to speak.
Great.
So, Mike, what else have you been working on?
So I can't see with my shoulder really. Oh, it's right off the camera. But a book called All In. This is my next book, coming out in 2024. So this is the weird thing, Stephen, with the supply chain issues that we're having. It's taking so much longer to get a book out. I finished the manuscript. It is done. I'm very proud of this work, and I think it'll give a new perspective on recruiting and retaining employees. But I just got to sit and wait. And I'm like biting my fingernails. So what I did in that book is I studied what the common approach is to recruiting employees, retaining them, and to raising the bar once people are on board, and found there's a very predictable protocol that we follow. We've all been told, there's A players out there. You got to pick A players, recruit A players, and so forth. I took a different perspective. And I think I default to this now, saying whatever is the established belief, let me get the data to see what the results are. Most companies that I interviewed and the research I looked at indicates that about 20 to 25% of hires are considered good hires. 75% of the hires we make, not just interviews, but actual hires, are considered lackluster, or we shouldn't have hired them in the first place. It's a massively high failure rate. I'm like, well, that makes no sense. We're told to follow this process, yet the failure rate's so high. What's a process where the success rate could be as high? And that's what I think I've uncovered and revealed in this book.
Interesting.
Yes. It is one of I've read every single one of your books, and I'm certified in several of them, and I'm always like, okay, what am I going to get certified in next that you're putting out? And I've asked you several times, like, does this have a program? Does this have a program?
Yeah, I know.
Because it all comes together.
Yeah.
But the all-in perspective, because I'm so into team engagement, and it really is what makes a business, right? It ties back to clockworking your business. It ties back to the fix this next process, the profit first process, and having other team members getting you there as a business owner. It's vital. Because we can't do it ourselves. So I was a pre-reader on the book, so I'm so excited for it to come out. And there's so many concepts in there to where I was leaving in the comments. I was like, yes, like that's right on point, or absolutely. And so I'm so excited for other business owners to get this content and also understand, like it's not that hard. Just like your other books and your systems that you implement in the books. And, Steve and I have this saying that he shared, and it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yes.
And that's where a coach comes into play.
Coach is massively helpful. So it's simple, but I think, I can speak for myself. When I have something I envision I want to achieve for myself or experience, I can very clearly see the outcome, and I can very clearly see where I am today. But I have this false expectation that the outcome is just a day away, and that's rarely the case. It requires steps to get there. When I teach Profit First, I used to teach the whole system of Profit First, and at the end say, okay, let's do this. But I've been invited back to audiences that I was teaching that way, and the vast majority, I'd say almost 100%, were not implementing Profit First. And it was so confounding to me. I'm like, you say you're not profitable. I gave you a system that makes you profitable. It's so easy to do. At least I thought it was. It was really simple. I was confusing the two. So simple to do. You should see results. Well, the feedback I got was it's not easy because it requires a mind shift. It requires setting up some accounts and stuff, which honestly doesn't take much time. But our mind says it's not easy. So then how do you make something simple and easy is my question. And what you do is simple is the process. Easy is diminishing the amount or the size of each step that you need to take. So more shorter steps is easier than fewer big steps. So profit first, I changed around saying, okay, now you saw me speak on this system. We know the vision. Let's just go to the bank and set up one account. Just set up one account and allocate 1%. Just let's sit there for a little bit and breathe. This is like, if you're going to work out, let's go stretch first. Once you stretch, okay, let's do some exercise, see how we did. We'll come back the next day, make some improvements. And you're going to transform your cardiovascular system within 6 months, but we're not going to do it in the first day. I think that's what makes something that is simple more accessible, more easy, is when there's these little bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
So can I give a little bit away of your all-in book with the workshops?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, we were in Austin a few weeks ago, and you revealed about the workshop concept for recruiting. So I have since visited Home Depot and watched their process and observed and tried not to look like too creepy. Like I tried to look like the impatient dad or grandpa waiting and not observing. So I think I did okay. But lots of families were there and lots of engaged people. I was paying attention to how much energy was there. Yeah. And the Home Depot employees paying attention to who was engaged, right? Who was helping other people, and not just their own team or their own kids that were there. They were helping the other parents, and they were helping the other kids, people that are paid to be there. So it was very interesting to watch. And we have our first workshop coming up on April 8th. And I took, some of the advice that you kind of just give in this podcast about relying on your team. Instead of me coming up with the workshop, I interviewed my team, the people who are working in the field every day, and I asked them, what would you want to learn more about? What do you have interest about? And it was big, heavy equipment. So we have an excavator, a backhoe loader workshop going on this Saturday.
And are these free workshops, or people paying to come, or how's it?
No, we set up, it's $30, and to make sure people show up, it's $30. We created an Eventbrite, account, and it's an event that people have to pay to attend. So I'll keep you updated. And I'm not expecting the first time that we do it. And I did get a little coaching from someone, and she said it takes time to build up an audience and learn how to do it. So I'm going to look at the long play, but we have this going. So, and it did create a sense of excitement and stir in the company and our social media community also.
So I'll unpack this a little bit, the Home Depot. So what I reveal in the book is Home Depot has this secret system for recruiting employees. What I love so much about it, they're not the only ones that do this, it's a joyful experience for everyone. So what they do is they offer these little workshops. You can build a birdhouse. Maybe that's what you went to. And they invite the general public to be there. They don't say, hey, come work at Home Depot. They say, build something. With your child, or if you're a guardian, with the child that you bring, or maybe you're just interested for yourself. What they're doing is multi-tiered. First of all, they want you to have a positive experience with Home Depot. So there's a link of positivity with Home Depot. They ingratiate you as a client that way. Secondly, they want you to buy supplies there, right? So there's definitely this motive that if you built this here, what else can you do? And we have the supplies to do it all. But the hidden gem is this. Those employees that are guiding the experience are also observing the participants, and they're looking who is the most engaged, who is helping other people. And they'll approach those people and say, wow, you're doing such an amazing job here. We're honored to have you as a customer. We'd love to have you as an employee. Would you ever consider that? And they're cherry picking these candidates. Now, no one knows they're a candidate, which is the best. Everyone's there just to have a good time. Everyone's elevated. Everyone's learning. So I call these workshops, or they can be called camps. And this is derived from the sports field, no pun intended there, but particularly in college sports, what they'll do is, but all levels do, is they have these camps. And what the role of a camp is, every participant elevates in that activity, whatever it is. So everyone's getting an education. So everyone's coming out better. And then certain people are cherry picked by the staff to say, hey, you can go further with us. So that's the goal here. I love that you're doing this, Stephen. I actually now want to show up because, we're working with heavy equipment. That sounds like so much fun. If your participants hear this is fun, they're going to be, they're demonstrating an interest, a desire to learn more. And that's the first indicator of a great employee. Because if you have an employee who is desirous to do this work, isn't that a good thing? Well, what happens is some people will have their curiosity served just by experiencing this, and they go home and say, we were with a backhoe for a day and that was a blast. I don't need to do it again. You've elevated them. So thank you for being of service to them. You've given them stories, you've given them experience, but you've also shared with them something maybe that isn't a life's passion. But a select few will say, can I do this again? Can I come back again? A certain degree will have a thirst for it. They'll want to learn the intricacies. What if I do this? Is there different techniques, etc.? Our job is just to pay attention to that. This is not a job recruitment platform. We don't pitch it that way. We don't have flyers up saying looking for a job. Our job is just to sniff out people who have the greatest thirst. And when they reveal themselves, then engage them and say, hey, we'd love to do this with you again. Maybe we can do a private session, or maybe come with our team, or maybe you ever want to have a workday experience, to sign this waiver and come with us and work for a day. We'll even pay you for a day's work with us so you can experience what it's like. And then you're elevating everyone and you're finding the best candidates for yourself.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
I'm pumped for you.
Yeah, and we'll share some good video on social media. And we're hoping it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll keep you updated.
Yeah.
And I love the idea too, Steve, that you were not the champion of that, and you allowed, your team to own it. And that's, through the storyline of All In, it's really, Mike, what you're sharing is that ownership, concept with a team that makes it successful. And I feel like just that, method right there supports the success of your other workings like Clockwork, fix this next, the profit first system, like all these things you bring to the table, because if you're allowing your team to own it, it's going to make, those steps and those processes all that more successful.
I was, and I shared this with you all. Actually, Christina shared with you a long time ago, but I shared at the retreat this concept of psychological ownership. Psychological ownership is where our mind tells us that story, that chatter that's always going on, says, this is your possession. This is significant to you. And what's so interesting about this concept of psychological ownership is it's not necessarily in correlation with legal ownership. So the classic example is someone will say, this is my house. I own this house. Do you? Or does the bank own it currently? Are you paying a mortgage because the bank owns it? So while we don't have legal ownership, the way we treat a house that we own versus one that we maybe are renting through Airbnb is radically different. I suspect your house, you upkeep it a certain way, and maybe an Airbnb, of course, we want to respect the other owner, but I don't care if there's the towels on the floor or if some water overflows when I'm washing dishes. I don't go crazy over that like I would perhaps my home. The point is this, is when we feel something is mine, and you'll actually hear those words, this is my responsibility, this is my house, or ours, meaning this is our business or our property. Those things are identifying psychological ownership. One key indicator to look for is the use of the word our, O-U-R, because that shows what's called collective psychological ownership. One of the dangers of sole psychological ownership, where I say this is mine, is it can cause territorialism. I'm trying to block you out and say, well, this is my job, stay away. But if I say this is our responsibility or our job, now I'm inviting you and engaging you in. But I will tell you this, if you hear employees or anyone saying this is your company or this is your success, that is a real call to arms or a call to fix, perhaps. There's something wrong here because they are disassociating with. So you want to have people on their own accord saying and emoting, this is our company, this is our success.
Great. That's definitely great advice and a perspective to have, because I feel like when it comes to leadership as a business owner, we all show up in our own way, and it's kind of from our mindset, it's our core values, the way that we were raised, right? Things that we were told growing up. and having just like a solid thing to lean on and like what to look at, and red flags, or even kind of like those go terms or words, it really opens up the door for us to know when we're doing it right, because we typically function in a silo as business owners.
We do.
And it's that acknowledgement.
I've probably told you a story before. Maybe it's news to the listeners. My second business was in computer crime investigation. Computer forensics is the technical term. I had this big vision for our growth. We're going to do $10 million in revenue. And I announced it to the company, and it was like this air out of a balloon kind of sound. Like no one cared. Patty, she was my personal assistant at the time. She's an extraordinary person. She came up to me and she goes, Mike, that's your success. Like if we get $10 million, that's your success. That was a big eye opener for me. And not in that moment. It took me years and years of reflecting on that when I realized, oh yeah, most business owners, and perhaps we're all guilty here, is we set a vision for the company, which is our vision. We set the metrics and goals that are our goals. And that's good. That's actually great. We need to have that. But we believe it's a collective goal. We think everyone, because I said it, everyone's in. We're going to serve 1 million clients. We're going to do this. This is amazing. But the reality is everyone's on, as you pointed out, Christine, our own journey, our own pathway. We have our own upbringing. We have our own expectations and desires. And I think it's a mistake for us as leaders to specify what we want alone. We should say it, but I think we need to put emphasis on what they individually want. And I think it's equal emphasis. Yeah, I want a $50 million company. Wonderful. Jen out here may want to put an addition on her house. Mark may want to learn how to speak Spanish. We all, and these are all equally important. When you look at the vantage point of the person saying, this is my dream, they're all equally important. There's no one that's bigger or smaller. Our job then as a leader is to say, okay, how do I choreograph this? How do I make sure Mark is learning Spanish and achieving that dream and maybe traveling to Spain one day? How is Jenna getting her addition? And how am I getting the big business, the big small business I've always wanted? Now, it doesn't mean gifting. And I'm not saying I'm going to hire an instructor for Mark. I'm going to help fund the addition for the house. It absolutely does not mean that. In fact, I would argue that's probably one of the worst things you can do because it disables the person from doing it themselves. Instead, it's keeping them on top of that dream. It's asking about them. It's being about engaged. It's about saying, what are you doing to make this happen? What can you do within your capacity here to expand on that? And when you ask questions like that, they're going to start thinking the same way in the business. What can we do to expand on this vision for Mike? And it shows reciprocity just through the interest in other people's goals. We have outside my office here, so through the wall right there, there is this big tree that Aaron made. It's out of wallpaper, so it was a barren tree initially, but it may go up 10 feet high, and it was just barren. And we have leaves that we use to fill the tree every time we achieve an individual accomplishment. So someone wants to do a cross-country train trip with their spouse. The day that person pulled that off, they're going to fill it out and they're going to add to the tree. Well, the tree, we've only been doing this about 2 years now. The tree is in such bloom, even Steve's company would have trouble maintaining this shrubbery. It's massive. And it's a beautiful thing to see how the company's blossoming and to have that visualization for it.
Yeah, and I've been to your office. I was just, there in January, and I saw this tree, and there were some amazing accomplishments that your team, has made. And it's obvious that the support there, not just, from you as their leader, but, your other leaders in your business and just their coworkers. It's phenomenal, and how they share, and you can see, even the writing on the wall, like what they're sharing and saying, that there's a lot of joy, and pride in what they've accomplished.
When I was looking at it, and I look at it not every day, but every time I walk by it, if I remember, I'll look at it. So maybe 2-3 times a week. I look at one, it said cancer-free. I get emotional now. I'm like, holy shit. And it says year 4. I was like, oh my God, that's right. Amy's 4 years of cancer-free. And gosh, is that important? And gosh, wouldn't that be such a sin if I didn't remember that? If I didn't think about that, if that wasn't important to me? It's like, I know you have your battles, but we got to grow as a company. And if I don't engage with that, that is what I'm saying. It's all about the company. When you go home, you can live your life, but here it's the company. That is the worst thing I think we can do. And I think that happens a lot, not because we're bad people. I think everyone's good. We've just been programmed that what's at work is at work and your life is at home and they'll never mingle. But I found that when we understand each other, when we're really human with each other, everyone blossoms, especially, maybe just by coincidence, but especially the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Steve, too, has done an exceptional job in his company and really supporting the growth of his, individual team members, bringing up his emerging leaders in his company and sharing just the overall purpose, not, his individual purpose, but the purpose of his business. And you can see it in how his team shows up, what they share and communicate, just the story around this workshop, and how excited his team got. And they kind of took it over. He was like, hey, I have this idea. And then, here it is. It's actually happening.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Next Friday on the 14th, we're having 3 of the team members reveal their why. And part of our 1,000-day program is you get through one of the last steps is to find, working with Simon Sinek's program to find your why. So we have 3 people who are sharing their why on the 14th. And, it's going to be a work in progress, but this is where they're at. They've written their stories and they've come up with their themes, but it's exciting and they're already talking about it. And it just really lets the people we work with show up for each other in a really human way. And it just makes life matter. It's very interesting. I have a lawn care and landscape business. If you came here, we do lawn care and landscaping, but the people that work here are not lawn care and landscape. We're here for each other, and we're here for the long haul, and we're here, to make an impact at work and in our community, which is a whole different conversation. But we also have to be profitable. And I really, credit Profit First with being profitable first. Then it allowed us that personal time and space to have that development. Because if I was always on that hamster wheel like I was, pre-2015 before I discovered Profit First, we'd have a good year, then we'd have a bad year, then we'd owe taxes too much and we'd have to borrow money. And it was always this, who do we pay? When do we pay? So our mind was always focused on day to day, week to week. So once we got past that day to day, week to week, and the finances and the cash had a system like everything else in the business, then we could really focus in on the development of the team and the personal growth, not only for us, but the whole community. So I call Profit First my freedom system because it really gives me that time and space and my team time and space to have the freedom to become more.
Oh, I love it. When I was working on Fix This Next and the business hierarchy, I had questions from people saying, well, that's not profit that matters the most. It's the people who matter the most. So therefore, you need to put people first. And all the research I did indicated, people matter the most. But without profitability, you can't pay your people. It's not sustainable. So you're compromising your people. So your story, Stephen, plays out very consistently with this priority pyramid. Is we start at the bottom, we have the revenue coming in, but we need to make sure we're a sustainable business, which is profitability, which allows us to empower our employees. Then our employees are more empowered, it brings back more sales. That must be profitable to empower further. So it starts this loop. So I'm happy that is landing naturally with you. And I'm super honored, by the way, that you're using Profit First. I love it. I love it.
And
it was simple, but not easy.
Right. I hear you.
Yeah, and I can definitely see, the topics and the content that you've developed over the years, Mike. It's this business ecosystem, to where it's all the little things, that we can do, but they come together and they focus on these different areas of needs, as entrepreneurs of what we don't know, what we don't know.
Yeah.
And there's, little pieces that some of us may know, but we don't know it to the full extent, or we don't know it all, but going through the process and the methods that you share with the community, it gets us there. At some point in time, it gets us there in our own journey.
Yeah, I like that. And I think we need to be okay with, you don't have to get it right, so to speak, perfectly today. We do have time. I just got an email from a friend I haven't seen in maybe 15 years. We started off in a educational program together, and he went on to do different things. And he said, he goes, I'm reading Profit First for the first time this week. And he's like, my God, I wish I discovered this 15 years ago when we knew each other. And I was already talking about it back then. Or when I wrote the book, which was now, it's 10 years old, the original. And he's like, I wish I discovered back then. And my response was, yeah, but you wouldn't be here today if you didn't go through your journey. None of us would be where we are today if we didn't go through that. So if we were 15 years ago, you couldn't have absorbed it or learned it. You had to go through your journey to say that this is relevant now. I really do think when the student's ready, the master presents itself, or the resource, maybe in this case, the book or the video or the master class. I think when we're really ready to receive it, we'll receive it. And I also wonder if he and I and we have received knowledge in the past, but it didn't land. And therefore, we never received the knowledge in the first place. Maybe his name was Todd. Maybe Todd did receive Profit First 15 years ago and just never was ready to hear it or absorb it. I know that's a case for me because sometimes I'll be at a presentation and this is the 100th time I've heard something, but this is the first time it actually registered with me. And that means, I must have been ready this time.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely have seen that, with business owners towards you're talking, I call it Charlie Brown talk, right? We're talking to them and we're telling them, but they're just not ready to receive. Yeah. And they're not at that place, in their life, but they will get there. They have to start somewhere. Everyone starts at their own place.
Wah, wah, wah. Wah, 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 wah. And I've done it to my wife where she told me for 20 years to stop drinking Gatorade. It was full of sugar. And I heard one nutritionist speak at a conference and I came home. I can't drink Gatorade anymore. It's full of sugar. I thought I saw a shoe pass by my face. She's like, I've been telling you that for 20 years. So, right, I just was not ready to hear it. Yeah. And I just wanted to share my story because a lot of business books are so pie in the sky and they're just not attainable and there's not something you can implement. But one thing, and the reason I really love your books is because I can implement them. And if I struggle to implement them, there's coaches out there, whether it's Profit First, Pumpkin Planning, Fix This Next, Clockwork. There's a support system that you've built. And very few people have built that support system that helps, support the concepts and ideas and action steps surrounding their books.
Thank you. Yeah, I go to a therapist. I think and everyone that feels any interest, you should explore it at least. I thought I could care for my mental health alone for the longest time. And there's researchers, books, there's all these systems, and they helped. But I wasn't able to stick with it. I didn't have the discipline. I wasn't able to dynamically adjust because when I had a new need, I'm like, what books I have to read now? And I have to rewind to the starting point. Now my therapist is like, this is what we should work on this week. I'm like, that's exactly what we should work on this week. So it's much more dynamic. I see the same thing in the gym. There's millions of books out there about diet and exercise. There's millions of gyms out there that you can join, and many people do. But for some of us to stay with it, because it is uncomfortable. It is hard to do. There isn't a time I go to the gym saying, this was an easy one today. Every time it's hard and sucky. But when there's a trainer there, there's an accountability component. She's giving direction on actions to take that don't injure you. So my feeling is many people need a solution. Some people will discover a book I've written or someone else has written that will serve them. A portion of them will only have transformation if they have guidance from a professional. And that's why we started those organizations.
They're very supportive. So would you like to share anything on what's next for Mike Michalowicz?
I'm pregnant.
I saw that on April 1st on your page.
Yeah, I did say I'm pregnant. Yeah. The first male having a baby. Well, actually, not the first, because supposedly the Joker in the Spider-Man series got pregnant, and there's a big uproar about it. But there you go. You can look into it. What's next for me? So All In is the book that's coming out next. This probably won't be a surprise. I'm already working on my next book. I can't reveal any details yet because I don't know which one it is. I'm working on 3 books. I'm pretty close to having the concept pinned down. then I'll go through the publishing process. The funny thing is with books, it takes about from this point, it'll be another 3 years before that book comes out. Even though I have the whole system documented, now it's just picking it and writing it, which takes about 1.5 years. And then now with the supply chain, it's another 1.5 years once a book is done to get in circulation. And I got some other projects going on. Some I can't reveal. One I did just reveal, which is now public. We partnered up with Relay Bank for Profit First. This is the first bank that we have handed over the entire Profit First system, including the logos, including everything, for them to implement it. And it's been a wild success so far. We have heard of thousands of customers going over to their system. It makes Profit First so much simpler. So I'm super excited about that project. And we have a few more of those things, but I can't reveal yet. They're still in the final stages.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've met with the Relay Bank team, and they're phenomenal.
Right?
They've got great energy. They're super dialed into the Profit First process. They understand small business, and I love all the things that they're doing. They're so innovative when it comes to, removing the friction from not just business, but also the Profit First system.
That's
so
right.
I'm excited, to continue to work with them, to connect them with clients. And I'm sure we'll have them as a guest on the podcast eventually here soon as well.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I love talking about banks because they are a big friction point and a problem, in small business.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are.
Yes, exactly.
Relay is.
So, what is a word of advice or a quote that has had a huge impact on you that you would share with other business owners?
Jumps to mind every time. It's attributed to Oscar Wilde. I don't know if it's his quote, though, but it's be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. If you lean into that, I believe you will have the definition of success you want for yourself.
Yeah. I love that.
Thank you so much for today, Mike. We appreciate you coming on our podcast. We're super excited that you're here. Thank you for your time, and best wishes on the book launch and your other endeavors.
Christeen and Stephen, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast.
The show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.